I'm MK Wasilewski, Product Marketing Manager. I'm just here to welcome you guys and get everything kicked off, and I'll jump in again when we have questions at the end. Our featured hosts today are Alex George, CEO of ProcessMaker, and Brian Reale, our founder. So they are going to be telling you about first the BPA industry and what's been available to you up to this point and now. And then Alex will take it over and start talking about how we solve some of the issues you might run into with ProcessMaker and how we take that into the future. And then Brian will give us a demo so you can see about a 5-minute demo, just a short one, to see some of the things that we have available currently in our latest winter release of the platform. So with that, please, Brian, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, MK. It's great to be here with everyone and appreciate your time today. So hopefully we'll be talking about some interesting things and showing you some interesting innovations in ProcessMaker. So before Alex kind of dives into the product and what we're doing, I wanted to just give a few reflections on business process automation until now. So ProcessMaker was started 24 years ago, almost 24 years ago. So we certainly have a few things to reflect upon. We've seen a lot of change, and the world, of course, is about to go through a massive amount of change with everything that is happening with AI. So it's good to think how we got here and why what's about to happen. Hopefully, will be a big step forward. So first of all, let's think about building processes. You know, we've been doing this for a long time. And the way ProcessMaker has always been sold is that, hey, you have a choice. You can go and hard code a solution, you can get some developers, and you can kind of address some of your process challenges, or you can use something like ProcessMaker, which is a low-code business process automation solution where we make it really easy for you to design. We have this low-code drag-and-drop designer. So that was certainly true. It is certainly true. However, if you look at the graphic here on the right, we generally, during most of those years, you started with a blank page. And as we all know, whether you're a writer or a designer or a process designer, starting with a blank page is difficult, right? You have to kind of get started. And so, sure, you might say, well, later we came out with templates and we have lots of templates. But for the most part, you have to sort of get started on your own. And that's difficult. No matter how easy the low-code drag and drop is, you have to kind of remember best practices. You have to remember, if you hopefully got trained on how to label things, what the start event does, what the tasks should be doing. There's a lot to get your head around, and it requires a lot of training. So that's been the then up until now. But let's think about the future. What if we could simply describe a process in words or in pictures and have AI build it for us? And so for those of you who think about it, if you think about it, generally, if you're working on a process, you start with a whiteboard, but before you start writing on the whiteboard, somebody in the room is describing the process. So there actually is that step, and that's generally easier than the drawing, or at least it comes before the drawing. So what if that were possible? Second thing we've dealt with in process automation during all these years is the fact that most of the processes we're automating. Now, remember, there's lots of different types of processes in the world and in organizations. There are pure STP type processes or straight through processes, which generally tend to have kind of a connector to connector to connector, what many in the industry would call an integration platform as a service or an iPaaS. At ProcessMaker, we have both the human part of processes and the connectivity to systems. So you can build connectors, you can also write scripts if you want, but we also tend to present data to users. We tend to grab data from your systems of record, your ERPs or your CRMs. We then tend to pass it to a human who adds information or makes a decision. And we used to have a slide that said that the Microsoft Office with Excel and Word really revolutionized personal productivity, and business process automation kind of revolutionized productivity between people and in business groups. But the fact is that most of the process time, if we think about the time it takes to complete a process, the SLA, if you're approving a new account opening or onboarding a new employee, it's usually waiting on your fellow coworkers to make a decision. It's gotten routed to somebody, it's sitting in their inbox, and then we're waiting for them to go make a decision. So that is most of the time spent in these kinds of processes. So another what if? What if in the future we already know the decisions, the best decisions that can be made because we've got a lot of history, and we could map those back so that we take the best outcomes and map those back to every decision point in the process, so that essentially we do not need people to make those decisions. So for some of you that make you uncomfortable. For those of you that are uncomfortable and already driving self-driving cars, well, you shouldn't be uncomfortable because your car is making those decisions for you right now in a way that's much more has much more serious repercussions. But this is the idea. Why wait if we don't have to? And then we look at another part, which is the amount of time we spend in meetings looking at analytics. Creating analytics so that we can better understand how we could improve our processes. So one thing is we've automated our process. Now, of course, the manager level users want reports to understand how we're doing with the processes. And once we have that, then generally somebody is going to make suggestions on how to change it so we can drive efficiency, so we can drive improvement. And so there's a lot of time spent analyzing, creating the tools to analyzing, then doing the analysis in order to improve processes. But let's think about the future. Would we need to spend so much time creating and studying reports if our processes were always being improved for us automatically? What if at all times we were testing multiple possibilities in the process? And what if at all times we were comparing those and then making adjustments to the process, essentially skipping that analysis step because we, again, know what a best outcome looks like. We know what efficiency looks like. And so if we're always testing these things, would we have to spend so much time doing the analysis and then going back and fixing the processes? So just a few reflections here to give a hint of what might be possible in the future. And with that, let me, one more piece, which is, again, what if this future of process design were available today, this future that I'm talking about? So with that, let me hand it over to Alex.
Thank you very much, Brian. As you all can tell, we spend a ton of time really thinking through how we can improve the fundamental steps of building processes and building workflows that automate a set of capabilities within our clients' businesses. On the next slide, I think we begin to think through how AIs can just help with that first step. Brian kind of made the point about, hey, starting from a blank sheet's just difficult and it takes time. The other components, though, are that when you start from a blank sheet, what's also missing is the ability to iterate, right? You build the first version, it feels good enough, and so you just ship. You don't have the chance to try 2 or 3 different versions. You don't have the chance to kind of try 2 or 3 different screens or forms because it just takes so long to generate each of those. When we think here, especially as AI kind of makes building each of these components easier, the whole idea of automating a process or a workflow becomes much more clear. So obviously, for those of you who've been doing this for a while, it's really obvious. But as you kind of think of that step, there's a couple really significant components. There's the process model itself, which is just how is the process going to flow? And what are the decision points we want to be able to make through that process? And we really think a user should be able to just describe that. As they describe that, the software should draw the process. And the user should be able to go back and change the way that process runs or the way that process is defined, right? And look at that new definition and see if it's better than the way they previously defined. The second thing, once you've kind of defined a process, is to be able to kind of think through the forms and make sure that the screens that are presented to process users have the right components and look right and feel right and are easy to use. So the AI, our AI, will generate that first set of screens for you, that first set of forms. So the user can again, move things around, try what works, and really have options as to how data should flow. And then finally, of course, there's integrations that everybody wants to accomplish. And those could be in scripts, or it could be a script to do a specific set of calculations. And essentially, all the capabilities of a copilot, a developer copilot, are now available in scripting. And what you are able to do today is really just quickly and simply say, hey, look, you know what? I want the ability to pull the latest interest rates. I want the latest LIBOR interest rates plus, X based on credit risk. All of those kinds of decisions can just be described, and the software will create the code for you. It'll also look at your code and suggest opportunities for improvement or acceleration in that code. So hopefully, we're writing and creating more performant workflows and more performant processes. All of these, as you'll see on the next slide, are really focused around kind of making it easy for the user to just launch quicker, right? We want you to launch processes, try them, and modify them, and just continue to grow with them so that, the whole cycle of being able to build, launch, and iterate becomes much more available to non-developers, to process owners and business managers and IT managers who just want to get something up and running and then obviously continue to improve on them. Our next set of innovations really were around a concept we call guided templates. The idea here is that for a new set of processes, we should make it really easy for a process owner to be able to enter her integration points. So access to her Gmail, for example, or mail system, access to her Bamboo system, and then or similar HR system, access to her to her finance system, and then have the software then do things like invoice approvals or expense approvals or other HR approvals, onboardings, and so on in a simple, straightforward way. We can obviously continue to scale this up and make it equally easy to be able to onboard new accounts for a bank or calculate specific interest rates for an individual at a specific credit rating, buying a house or a similar large asset. And so all of those processes or steps that would otherwise have taken a number of integrations in the past, and each integration having its own unique set of components, can now be done in one place. We're building a library of these. And so as you'll see on the right, one of the screenshots is of that library. The example here, obviously, you see is of invoice approval, but you'll be able to see kind of all the things that happen. We're building templates for all the things that we believe happen in the CFO's office, in HR, in IT, in the controller's office that we all think roll into kind of that CFO function. The next slide kind of details this at the next level of detail. And, our whole idea is that as, IT managers or builders, we really have the capability to kind of create these prefab processes, these prefab workflows. So anyone in our business can access them, use them, try them out, and then obviously provide feedback and hopefully really enjoy kind of that accelerated use case. 2024 for us is really the shift of going from AI for the developer, which we showed you hopefully or gave you some examples of already, to really AI for the user. We want to make it easier for users to be able to continuously engage with AIs that can take us past just making if-then-else decisions, which code has been doing for an incredibly long period of time. So that non-binary set of decision capabilities, that non-if-then-else kind of construct, is really where we're focused. A quick view of our roadmap is on the next slide, and obviously you've seen these things as we've launched. We started with search, and the whole idea was that finding the case you're looking for, finding the specific project or the specific workflow should be super easy. You shouldn't have to know any kind of query language to be able to achieve that. The second is every screen for every form for every product should be easily translated into the language of your choice. And obviously it accepts customizations, but that whole process should be really straightforward. And the software, the AI, should find the right translation and learn from you as you make corrections to those translations. Fall for us is really around automating or creating AIs specific to the work that designers, developers, and IT managers do. And that's really been the focus. The winter has been about generative AI and upgrades to our natural language search capabilities. Fall 24 is really going to be about a couple of significant capabilities, and I'll walk through those in just a second after the roadmap slide, which is next. So if I may walk through those, the first of these is the idea of A/B testing. And the idea here is we think of this in two steps. There's the obvious idea of launching A/B testing quickly. And the idea there is that we draw one version of a process and we launch it, which is great. But do we know it's the most efficient way to help a student at a university go through a transfer credit evaluation? Do we know whether it's the most efficient way to help a student decide whether or not to apply to our university? We should be able to try a B, right? And this capability, this idea of A/B testing or multivariate testing has been really popular in software for a very, very long time. The second innovation, other than just A/B testing that we're bringing to this, is that the AI will watch your A/B tests and start suggesting a C. So the software, the AI, will recommend that third variant. And of course, we encourage you to try that third variant, but in doing so, over time, we're hoping that the AI is looking at every step in the process and constantly suggesting improvements in that third version. And so your multivariate testing goes from just two versions that a human thought of to two versions a human thought of and a third version that the AI is constantly generating. And we think then that over time what will happen is that the process can become as flexible as the humans working the process, and it can modify based on accelerations or decelerations at each step in a process. And that learning, that ability to continually improve, will deliver against a total goal. A goal may be a service level, or it may be cost, or some other construct. As Brian was showing you on the next slide, we talked about the idea that you can start building a process just by describing it in text. But in many other cases, there's just documents that are part of the conversation. And those documents are either forms or invoices or bills of lading or contracts that we're looking at and thinking about how to process more effectively. There's a client who's who does a ton of work in the financial services space, who really wants to be able to look at contracts and be able to say, for a new contract, how does this new contract align or not with our standards? And the idea is the user, that client, should be able to just take pictures of every page of the contract, and the software will come back and say, hey, look, your term and termination, your warranty are all accurate, are all to the standard, but your liability terms are not, right? Being able to do that, for example, in real time is to us the next big step. Another next big step for us is simplifying the effort that goes into taking what happens on a whiteboard or a napkin and turning it into an actual process map. We, right now, lots of us kind of design in a meeting room, design in committee, and then some poor soul gets stuck with the job of turning that into something usable, and lots of time gets lost. We think that in that meeting room, right there, somebody should be able to take a picture, load it into ProcessMaker, and have the process appear. Right there, we should be able to attach the processes and try it out. And then we'll all get a sense of whether this new process we've designed is effective. We think it'll bring huge acceleration to the way firms work and huge acceleration to the customer experience and the user experience, the process user experience of engaging with these tools. Our next step, and in many of these conversations, has been around a process that's been launched or started by the user, right? So a user chooses to, figure out whether she's ready to graduate from university. A user chooses to apply for a new product from a bank. A user chooses, to file an expense report. And so on in each of the verticals that ProcessMaker serves now. We think there's the next step, which is the software can be proactive. The software knows, for example, that we file expense reports almost on a weekly basis. It should be able to collect expense reports or receipts along the week during the week and be able to proactively let the user know that, hey, look, you've got, it's the end of the week and here are the receipts you've taken pictures of so far. Are you ready to file the expense report? It should know that a student is approaching graduation and be able to say, hey, should we do that degree audit to get you ready for graduation? And so on. The whole idea is we can take that next step. We can be relevant to the user in real time and help the user proactively kind of move forward through a process. And those small nudges really are incredibly powerful, incredibly useful to users, both in terms of helping them kind of make the next decision, as well as helping them kind of just have an easier, more effective, more productive set of experiences with the brand. There's lots of examples of this. Airlines are a great example. Consumer experiences are a great example where that small nudge, that guidance that, hey, look, your gate changed, or guidance around being able to identify where your luggage is when you get off the plane, are all examples of this proactive capability. The last huge effort that we're putting in is the idea of just complete automation inside a task. So as you know, automation tools like ProcessMaker and so on are very good at making if-then-else decisions. And then there's been a ton of work around making decisions based on statistical models, both of which are incredibly powerful and very useful. We think the next iteration, the next generation is going to be the ability to not only consume that if-then-else construct, but being able to make decisions based on photos, documents, voice recordings, video, text. You should be able to send any of that to ProcessMaker and ask for not just a synopsis, but an action or a set of actions. So it's not just, hey, listen to this meeting and give me a synopsis, which is easy. But it's, hey, listen to this meeting, give me a synopsis, and please add the correct actions into Salesforce for each of the sales folks to take the next appropriate step. It could be actually file that next step and nudge the salesperson on what he or she should be doing next. It could be for an airline, hey, look, here's all the data we received based on the weather, nudge these folks and tell them their flights are likely going to be late. So all of those kinds of things. On the right, what you see is actually some work we were doing for an existing client, really around kind of simplifying the process of issuing speeding tickets, which isn't super exciting when you think of it at the surface, but in detail, it's a really powerful set of capabilities. It's the AI capabilities of reading that picture, identifying the car, identifying and confirming that the right car, the right license plate is exactly what you're looking for, and then being able to turn that into a set of if-then-else decisions on what the cost is for speeding or running a red light, and then converting that into the correct set of actions of sending that notification to the offender in this case, and then following up with that offender on the right set of corrective actions. We think this is an example, but we think the next generation of that set of capabilities is going to be able to actually make decisions based on all of this data in real time. And to make this possible, we really are focused on one set of capabilities. And each of these are examples of being able to have the 4 tools you see here in one place and really accessible, so that you can use documents, which is IDP, and be able to understand what's in the document, natural language process what's in the document. You should be able to make decision engine kind of decisions. You should be able to have a very large, very effective set of rules and know that those rules are consistently used throughout your organization. And those rules can be actuarial tables. Those rules can be decisions on, what interest rate to charge. It can be any series of complicated capabilities. Obviously, a business process automation capability, and then the AI capability of being able to understand all these new formats of content, as well as being able to make decisions based on all this new form of content. And we think as we bring these components together, the choices that firms have in terms of what can be automated, what can be accelerated, will continue to grow in a really, really significant way. And we think that this is where the promise of actual, really significant optimizations within the firm become possible. So with that, I'm going to hand back over to Brian, who's going to actually show us real software.
All right. Well, thank you, Alex. That was great. So let me switch gears here and switch to this part of the browser. I think is it switching with my browser? Or am I on the, can you see the browser now? Yeah. Okay, good. So, so I'm in ProcessMaker. And so what we've kind of looked at today with Alex is some of the great innovations that are being added to ProcessMaker. And so what we're going to do is just give you a quick introduction to that creation AI experience. But before we do that, I think it'll be good to have something to compare it against. And so for those of you who are already ProcessMaker users, I see some familiar names on the list, or those that have tested our software, you'll probably be familiar with this, or for those of you who have built processes in other software, you'll recognize some of what I'm going to show you. So first, I'll take a few minutes and just do a few of the early steps that you would normally do that are referred to in the beginning if you're beginning with a blank slate or a white kind of a whiteboard that's empty. So in our world, we think about processes and we think about the assets of a process. The core asset is the process, so we'll create a new one. And then we may add screens, which are our type of web forms, scripts if we want to do something a little unique. And you'll see we can do that with pretty much any coding language and any library you want to be part of a script executor. Decision tables, when you've got a lot of rules to process besides just the procedural rules in a process, which tends to be more procedural oriented, and then your data connectors. And we didn't really talk about it today, but one of the really powerful things in ProcessMaker that has been added in the last kind of year and a half is a full integration platform as a service under the hood, so you can connect to those often hard to connect to enterprise systems like an SAP or a Sage or a NetSuite or one of literally hundreds of systems. So let's start with the process experience, and let's go to a new process. And here you'll see, again, I have the ability to generate from text. I have the ability to build my own, or I could choose from a library. Now, in this case, the library has some codes because this is a kind of an engineering test server. But anyway, I'm going to start with build my own. And so you'll see lots of little things here, which I really want to point out because you're going to then be able to compare them to this alternative experience where a lot of this is done for us. So, let's say I'm creating a classic invoice approval process. Then I would have to come up with a description. And one of the things we've noticed over the years is most people, that's their description, right? Because we're all a little bit lazy and we just don't think of the description. So many of you will have companies and you'll recognize that. That's often a description. Categorized, it's usually uncategorized. Project, process manager, people just don't know what to fill in these situations. So, well, this name was taken because I was doing a test earlier. So let's try it with a 1. And then I am dropped in to that classic canvas, and we love our canvas. It's really nice and easy to use. But again, it is a concept that's been with us now for a couple decades, and it's made things easy, but things are about to get a lot easier. So here I've got my library of objects. We use the classic BPMN vocabulary, which is still really one of the most descriptive ways to create a process and to bring together non-IT users with IT users to kind of collaborate and build a process. So I've got a start event. I might start with that. Then I might bring over my first task and say, okay, I'm going to connect here. So very easy. I'm going to then say, all right, first form task is upload and describe invoice. Then I may bring over another task and say, Great. Now we want to approve invoice, and then probably a decision gateway, and say, okay, is this approved? And then I would have a couple paths for a yes path and a no path. Might grab all this and kind of move it around if that's easier. And then take my paths, connect those, and now I've got, you know, most of my process done. Maybe I'll add a couple end events here. And this has been the design experience. There's a few variants of this. This is what lots of companies do today. And this is then going to be, you know, file with pay invoice. And then maybe other things would happen here, something like send back or something of that nature. Right, so now I've got a basic process, but I would still have to go in and on this first task, so these are all going to be human tasks. Maybe this is something else. Maybe this is calls a sub process. If I send it back, so that will change that to a sub process. And this, of course, is my yes path. You know, it's approved, and this is my no path. Okay, so that's still quite a bit of work just to kind of figure that out. And I'm somebody who generally knows how to design a process. So if you're giving this to somebody who doesn't know how to design, who might have different ideas about how to label the tasks, you could get lots of different results. And now I still need to go in and say, great, I need a screen because this is going to be a user task for this first task. And so I will have to create a new screen. And so this is going to be the invoice creation or invoice upload, load screen, upload invoice and describe it. Now that's assuming I'm not using our IDP, because if we're using our IDP, Intelligent Document Processing, we might use that task, upload the invoice, and automatically extract the data from the invoice. So here, which again is available now as a guided template. So you don't even need to design that one. You would just literally start implementing it. So here, I'm going to probably start with some classic inputs, and I'll just do one or two. This will be first name, and then I have another one for last name. Okay, and then, you know, that kind of looks a little bit plain, so maybe I'll take this and put it into a multi-column format, and then add a kind of submit button at the bottom. And okay, I'm on my way with my form. I can even see the data preview. If I start adding something in, you'll see down on the right, it's capturing that JSON, which is going to be traveling through the process if I start this process. So then I might publish this form. It's going to version it for me. And I would have to do the same now if I was to add a script, basically write it, start from a blank screen, maybe come back to the designer and find my invoice process that I'm working on. And so it's this one, and I could go in and, you know, add a script task. So that's kind of the normal way of designing up until now, and pretty easy. The whole drag and drop concept was created to make it easy for non-technical users to design these things. But let's now look at what's possible. So let's go back out to our designer. And let's take an alternative path. So let's do another new process. And instead of building our own or using a template, in this case, we're going to generate from text. So we have a customer who, one of their more important processes, it is an office of the CFO. It's a very large company. And so as you can imagine, in your financial reporting, you have a series of accounts. They're your general ledger accounts. And you're reporting is really only as good as you can keep those accounts clean and categorize your revenue, your costs, all sorts of different things correctly. So let's imagine we are a CFO office and we want to create an approval process for suggesting and approving new general ledger code changes. So these would be the codes in your financial reporting. So if you have different types of revenue, in our case, we sell subscriptions, we also sell training, we sell professional services. These are all going to be recognized as separate codes in our chart of accounts. Suggesting and approving new general ledger codes for a multinational company. So let's just give it that basic of a description, and let's let the AI generate. Let's see what it generates for us. We can go back and tweak this if we don't like the results. So here we have being produced the AI generated process. So you can see right there that saved me. That's about the size of the last process we designed, and it happened in a couple seconds. And you can also see the labeling is impeccable. So all of the sequence flows, which are these lines coming out of the tasks or out of the gateway, they're labeled. Again, something a lot of users won't tend to do, which makes it a little difficult to decipher later on. And all the tasks are labeled. So start code change request, suggest a code change, review the code change, does it get approved or not, and then send an approval notification. So actually not bad. I mean, I think that's pretty good. So let's use that model. And there you go again. We've got the name and we've got the description. So again, in the last one, you remember I just kind of typed a bunch of letters that didn't mean anything, which is often the case. Here, it's already given me the name. It's already given me the description. So all of these incredible time saving, and not just time saving, but techniques that enhance quality. So we can get to great quality. And so now it's dropped it back into my editor. And you'll remember Alex presented a new feature. So we have been presenting over the last year these ideas about creating forms with our AI, creating script tasks with our AI, and creating the processes with the AI. But now we also have the end-to-end process creation. Now, Alex said something interesting about taking a picture of a napkin and being able to generate a process from that. So I had my first company during the dot-com boom and bubble, and everybody then talked about companies being built in garages and on napkins, and sort of still do, but it was kind of more popular then. And as Alex was talking, I was thinking, well, imagine we're not really that far away from the moment where you describe your business idea on a napkin, and a couple seconds later, the business is actually launched and live. Because all those business processes could actually be automated in ProcessMaker. Everything from creating the website, uploading the website, generating it, creating the e-commerce accounts, and launching whatever it is. So this idea of going from a napkin to functioning processes is pretty amazing. So we're going to see the first part of that right now. So let's hit create now. And so we're taking this model, and the AI is now going through the model. And you can see that first task just went blue, now green. Now it's on the next one, blue. So blue in this case means working, green means done, and it actually created that task. So now it's thinking and creating that next one called review code change. That's now gone into green. And now we get a message, assets generated successfully. So what does that mean exactly? Well, we could go into each of these tasks and look at it, or we could simply kind of roll the dice and publish this. We could upload an image here. I think I might have an image for GL code changes. There's lots of codes on that paper, so you need a magnifying glass. And let's save it. So this is for general ledger code change approval process. So again, this is a kind of metadata approval process that happens in the office of the CFO. And it's we've published it. And so now let's go and see if we can run a case. So here's the general ledger code change approval process. I tried one a little bit earlier, so just one kind of a similar one below it. And it is going to drop me no screen assigned. So let's go back. And let's try again. So this one's got the screen. Code change request. So let's say we're going to change a create new revenue category for cookies. Reason for code change, increased cookie sales. New code, cookies, 1. Description, use this for cookie-related revenue. It's not urgent, priority is medium. Due date, we'd love to get it done today if possible. Are there any files to upload? Not really, so let's submit it. And so this is the form, right? So this is a form that was generated when I generated that process, and I am now actually using the process as a user, right? So we skipped all the steps of validating it and creating the form and checking the form. So normally we would go back and tweak these forms. But to Alex's point, the idea is we want you to get started. We want to help people get started with something. So everything here is getting assigned to that same user. In this case, it is the admin user because I'm logged in as an admin. And so here, so it didn't carry over the suggested changes. It carried over the priority, but it's got the reviewer and the review date. So I probably need to go back and just check on that. So I'll say, yep, great, reviewer name and the review date today. That's asking me to probably looking for a date that already exists, and then maybe sign it. So again, we're not suggesting that this process is going to be perfect. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it's the way to get started. We've gotten started with sort of everything we need to actually be able to now pilot this process and see how it's working. So we want you to kind of know that now it's that much easier to have different parts of your companies begin getting their ideas out and testing them and then tweaking them from there. So that's really what we wanted to show you today. I'll just take one more second here before we go to questions and just highlight one other part that I think is great for those of you who have not seen this, which is this reporting. Again, we talked about this idea that eventually you might not need reporting because the process would always be improving itself. And Alex talked about this, but we know that a lot of you today do want this ability. And so we've added this incredible new set of dashboards around insights around how long your processes are taking. What's the fastest completion time, average completion time, and maximum completion time? I can filter by process. And the great thing here is I can see, okay, maximum is 4,000 days in this cases, and it's really being generated by this one process. I could drill into that process and see, what the issue with that process is, or switch to other processes. So, as you begin using the AI, as you begin deploying processes more quickly, you're going to want to see which ones are the ones that are performing and continue to make those adjustments, at least until the next level of AI that we present you with that starts helping you do that on its own. So with that, I will turn it back over to MK, and we're going to open up for questions.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Always exciting to see the latest. So we've had a few questions that have come through the Q&A function. Again, you can find that at the bottom of your Zoom window. So feel free to continue submitting those. We also have a few that were submitted outside of the Q&A function that we'll answer if we get to it. So the first question I have here, I'm going to summarize it if you're the person who submitted it. Is there a way to track the approval process of publishing a process? So I think this might play into our projects and collaboration tools. Alex, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. So yes, we can track and provide audit trails on to see where a process was kind of created, see which people approved the process and which people declined, or who declined kind of approvals during the process flow. So I think that's the first part of the question. And then, so each stakeholder can be tracked individually, and the analytics capability that Brian covered super quickly can actually have much more of that detail should you want it.
Thank you. And again, if you we're keeping an eye on questions in the Q&A function. So if you have them in the chat, feel free to just copy them over. All right, so the next one, by using the AI generated process and clicking on use model and then performing my own changes, is it incorporating additional AI amendments without losing my changes in what has been published?
Yeah, so sorry, I jumped in here. But once you have the AI model and then you decide to use the model, any changes you make will be saved with that original model. There isn't yet a follow-on for the AI to continue to modify that model. So once you've chosen that model and made your own modifications, the AI stops modifying that model, or stops modifying that process flow.
You can, before you publish it, there's the opportunity to edit your prompt and make changes that way and look back at your various versions that have come out. But once it's published, then you're editing. All right, thank you, Alex. All right, the next question here in the Q&A, is it possible, and if so, what is involved, with integrating an AI-generated ProcessMaker process with an external application menu option on a typical ERP system?
I can jump in on that one. So in fact, the process I was demoing there a moment ago really is a kind of add-on process for an ERP. And ProcessMaker, in fact, is embedded under the hood as a white label product in several of the world's largest ERPs. And that's because ERPs generally are systems of record. ProcessMaker is a system of modification. So they really do complement each other. And so although ERPs like SAP and others have some level of workflow capability, oftentimes it's not enough, and it's not flexible enough, and it's not agile enough. So you do it in ProcessMaker. So to answer this question, one option is a simple integration where you simply generate a web entry, which is kind of a form that can be placed anywhere, or a link that can be placed anywhere, or embed code, which can be placed anywhere. So depending on what access you have to the ERP, you could place an additional button in the ERP, and then you could communicate with the ERP using our standard connector library. So if it's a known ERP, again, most of the big ones, SAP, Sage, NetSuite, Oracle, we now have out-of-the-box connectors for those. You can connect, pull in the data, then route things, either embedding our inbox or doing everything through email or through Slack. There's many, many ways you could do that without adjusting that interface. And then you would use ProcessMaker to manipulate that data, push it back into the ERP. So hopefully that answers. There's other ways to embed more deeply, which we do with our white label partners, but in most cases you wouldn't need to do that.
All right. Thank you, Brian. And as a reminder, this is usually a question that comes up. We will be sending out a recording of this webinar to everyone who signed up. So you can look out for that in the next couple of days. All right, on to these next questions. Is the AI for scripts creation, does it use all the endpoints? Whoops, sorry, moved around. Or our database information, or is it just generic? Alex?
Yeah, sorry about that. It's just generic. So it won't have the specific information about the ODBC driver or the JDBC driver or similar that you're using to actually access the database. Can create the construct around it. It can write the markup language, the SQL script, or other markup language needed to collect the data. But the actual credentials for that database or similar would be provided hopefully by the developer.
Thank you. All right. Brian, I'll give you this next one. Is there a way to create a new process with pools and lanes using the AI generative tool?
So the tool does not, today it doesn't support pools and lanes on the AI, but as soon as you import it, you can then just drop a pool on top and move your different tasks into the lanes, and then create lanes and add the tasks into the lanes you want. We probably will support that at some point, but it's very easy to add in as soon as you import the model that you're using.
Thank you. Right. Is it possible to compare and optimize internal organization processes into the best processes available in the market or industry? I think this plays nicely into some of our AI roadmap that Alex talked about earlier. Alex, would you like to cover that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two components to this question. The first is obviously the ability to run multiple processes and find the optimization within your company, and that's going to be available through A/B testing and the multivariate testing, or the AI-driven multivariate testing that follows. So that's the answer, kind of future looking. The second thing we're working on in markets where we have a good footprint is to begin to provide some level of cohort analysis. So be blinded, obviously, but give you a sense of how quickly a process runs in comparison with others. That's a little further out, and would be specific to to obviously focused areas of expertise in specific verticals.
And I would just add, in some of the analytics, like the dashboard I was just showing, you do have that graph now that already does sort of compare best run, worst run, and average and median runs on processes. So you can see, if you're comparing across those processes, but as Alex mentions, is more interesting if you're doing it across meaningful cohorts.
All right. Thank you both. This next question, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but so you mentioned the number of use cases. Is the AI functionality going to be built into the existing platform, or is it already built into the existing platform? Or is it a separate product? So, and is this hosted in the cloud PM solution? Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so it is in the cloud. It is already in the cloud product, and will be available in the cloud product. It won't, and is obviously running an AI on premises is very, very difficult. So it won't be part of the premise-based products that some clients already have.
All right, thank you. Next, can AI be utilized to generate a script for obtaining or sharing information via Ellucian ethos data models? Sorry, Alex.
That's an excellent question, and one we absolutely have to try out. So we're gonna try that out, and we'll follow up with you specifically. It should absolutely work. Just haven't tried it.
All right. Thanks. And then Brian, I'll give this next one to you. How can user groups be assigned to flows through AI?
So it's another part of the AI that, again, eventually we probably will add. Today, we're not adding the user groups. So when you import it, just like the answer with the pools and the lanes, you would then simply add your user groups there.
All right, thank you. And then I have one more. And then I think unless we receive any more, we'll wrap it up. So can this BPA tool identify cost-saving opportunities that help us calculate ROI for specific processes? Alex, I'll give that to you. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm super sorry, that last part cut out. Can you say that again?
No worries. Yes. So how can the platform identify cost-saving opportunities and analyze ROI and help us calculate ROI for specific processes?
Yeah, so we really think that, again, that there's two sets of capabilities. The first and most immediate set of capabilities is going to be in the analytics tools. And the analytics tools that you saw will provide a clear view of how long a process takes and we can associate cost to each of those elements, so that we can begin to see how much of each person's time we're taking in getting that process executed. And so in the dashboards, we can build all of those capabilities now. The second is obviously with multivariate testing is the ability to be able to do that and see the cost associated with multiple, versions of a single process.
Thank you. All right. We're going to conclude our webinar for today. Thank you everyone for attending. Again, one more reminder, you will be receiving a follow-up email where you will be able to watch a recording of this, share it with your friends, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.